Well, you know what? It's so hard to believe that we are actually ending season six. Wow. This has been such an amazing season. We've had some unbelievable guests on. I've been so honored to talk to some great humans. I say this quite often, and I stopped saying this because I've told everybody I always say it's my last season, but it is not my last season. I am so excited that, I am going to take a little summer break like I always do. You're going to get the best of. We'll be making an announcement of who the best of were picked. But then we're going to come back in September and we're going to come back for, that's right, exactly season seven. I've been absolutely honored to be chosen as the best podcast in foster care and adoption, winning some of the most amazing awards for some great episodes and just for great content in general. And I just have to give a big shout out. None of this would have happened if it wasn't for my amazing producer, David Thalberg, who has had some amazing guests come on our show. And, also I have to give all the credit to Nick, who does all my editing and make sure that all the platforms that, we continue to keep sharing these amazing podcasts. And, this year I did a little bit of something different. I literally went to an every other week. My schedule got kind of crazy and as it always is, but the thing that I realized is that I really do love these podcasts. And I get so many amazing emails from so many of the viewers and listeners who really are getting educated by these podcasts as well. So, with the help of my amazing producer, David, and with Nick, we're actually going to kick off our new season. The new season, season seven, will actually begin September 2nd, and we are going back to a once a week podcast. That's exactly right. You'll be able to tune in on Tuesdays. You can tune in to our YouTube channel. Of course, we'll be sharing this on all of our social media platforms. And by the way, if you haven't caught the other seasons or, you just, maybe you're going for a walk on that treadmill or going for a walk because the day is beautiful, not like most days it's been raining lately. You can go back to our YouTube channel. You can go to our website and you can actually listen to those other podcasts. As you all know, our podcasts are only about 20 minutes long. What great 20 minutes to truly educate your mind. I could not think of a better way to end season six and, having someone on who I actually consider like family. I write actually about this in my memoir, when my husband and I actually moved to our little town of Darnestown, Maryland. It was very important for my kids and for my husband and I for us to find a church. I really do believe that church is very important. And for those, I'm not pushing my religion on you whatsoever, but for us, it's about the gathering of the community. The entire congregation. I mean, you really feel that connection when you have found a home. I will never forget standing on a soccer field and my son Grayson was playing soccer with my friend's son who you're getting ready to meet. And I was talking to her husband who they had become friends of ours. And I was talking about the fact that we had been, going around looking for a church and we just couldn't find a place to fit, understanding you got two white men with four kids of color. It's not as easy to fit that hole in that peg like we wanted to. And all of a sudden, I will never forget it. He said, "Hey, have you ever checked out Fairhaven?" And I said, "You mean the church that's like right around the corner from where I live?" And he was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "No." Well, guess what? We actually checked Fairhaven out, and we actually checked it out in what we call homecoming. It was in September, and since then, that's been our home, and that's been, oh my gosh, I'll have to ask Keisha, but I think it's been like 12 years ago. So, but further ado, I want to introduce you to my friend and the author of The Making of a Pearl, my friend, Dr. Kisha Davis.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you for having. Can you believe those kids who were playing soccer are about to graduate from high school? It's so crazy.
I know. They actually, I mean, literally, Reese was telling me last night, he's like, "Do you realize that Spencer's graduating high school this year? And, Grayson's done with high school and Mackay's graduating this year as well." It's like all of a sudden, and I remember when they were just knee high running around that soccer field. And, I will never, ever be able to thank you and your husband enough for, not only the friendship, startup that you started, but to literally open the door to Fairhaven. And I'll tell you something, if you have never been into Fairhaven, you truly never have felt what love feels like within your heart. Kisha, I want to dive right in. As we know, and I've shared this on my social media platform, your amazing grandmother, Grandma Green, as we all called her, actually recently just passed away at the age of 106 and 10 months. I want to make sure we put
Right.
that in there. But you had actually, before Grandma had died, you had actually written a book called The Making of Pearl. Can you let our listeners and viewers know why all of a sudden, and by the way, for those of you who don't know, Dr. Davis is one busy lady, raising three boys. And the fact is she oversees Montgomery County and the health department of Montgomery County. You are busy as a doctor. And by the way, her brother has been on here before, if you all remember, Jason Green. Now I just need to get her sister on, who, by the way, she's also a doctor. But what made you decide to write this book about Grandma Green?
So of course, she's my grandmother. She's got an amazing story. And you guys have heard the story of Quince Orchard. You've had Jason on, you've heard about finding fellowship. And that whole documentary started, the whole kind of impetus of that was she had gotten really sick 10, 15 years ago now. And we were worried we were going to lose her. And so Jason said, I had always, like my whole life, said, I'm going to write a book about my grandmother because her story is so amazing. And she got really sick. So we were like, we got to capture her stories. And so Jason started going into the bedside and interviewing her. And that turned into the amazing documentary that you all know is Finding Fellowship. And it talks about the story of community and faith and fellowship, but it wasn't grandma's story anymore. And I felt like her story still needed to be told. And it was my New Year's resolution to write this book for like 10 years. For so many years, I was going to write it and I would start it and stop and start and stop. And, a couple of years ago, I was like, I just need to do it. She's going to be 105. I don't know how many years we've got left. And so, I just put pen to paper. I found a great editor who really pushed me, and we released it on her 105th birthday. And I gave it to her on her 105th birthday, posted it on Amazon. But the stories really start back when I was a kid. When I was little, my brother and I, we would go to her house before school. That's where, we'd catch the bus in the morning and get off the bus there in the evening. And then when I was in high school, I think when I really started gathering her stories, when I was in high school, I would stop at her house for breakfast on the way to school. And so each morning for breakfast, she would make me breakfast, usually an egg and some waffles or sausage. And we would read the Upper Room Daily Devotional, and then we would just talk. And she would share stories of her growing up. I would share what was going on with me in high school. And so I carried those stories with me all this time. And I had little eavesdropping ears when I was young, and so collected those stories all along the way, and put them in a book. One of the fun things about writing this book was, one, getting to know her better, and I would talk to her and then also talk to, family and get more stories. But in each chapter, I do my reflections on a pearl. And so just giving a little insight into her life from the perspective of me being her granddaughter, me being a physician, and thinking about, all of those different instances and how to just, add a little bit more flavor. It was just such a fun experience.
How does it feel, the fact that, you got to share your grandmother with so many people? Because I will have to tell you, and all the listener viewers, you did not walk into Fairhaven without, acknowledging Grandma Green. And the reason for that is because she truly made you feel like she was your grandmother. My kids growing up, that was Grandma Green. She'd hug them and she'd love on them. She'd hug me and she hugged Reese. I remember when she came to our house for the very first time. She was just one of these people that just absolutely looked at everything with love and joy. And you got to share that with so many people. How does that feel?
There's so many lessons that she taught us, loving everybody. That was one of the lessons. After she passed, I did kind of a series of Instagram posts, and one of them was about love everybody and don't hold a grudge because it doesn't matter. And, she had many, many reasons in her life to be upset, to hold grudges, people who had wronged her, jobs she had been turned away from, racism that she faced, poverty, accidents. You wouldn't know it from talking to her. She didn't hold on to that. And I think that's a lesson for all of us, right? We all go through stuff. Some of us go through more stuff than others. You can hold on to that and it can fester inside of you, or you can let it go and let that love shine. And, I think people felt that in her presence, right? Just being here, she didn't have to say anything. And you knew that she exuded love and she was, passing that on to everybody. And she taught us that, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Let it
Yes.
go. You don't need to hold on to that.
And she really did, and she really taught it to us. I mean, and like I said, I was lucky enough. I mean, you got her for your whole life. I was lucky to have her for the 12 years that I had her in my life. And, there was never a time that I saw Grandma Green that she did not acknowledge me, acknowledge our children, acknowledged Reese. And to her, she didn't see two white men with four black kids. She saw a family that loved each other and literally opened her arms from the moment we met her. I remember, I'll never forget this, and I've got to tell our listeners this. So it just so happens that, Keisha's father, Reverend Green, actually baptized all four of our kids. But I will tell you the thing that I don't even, Keisha, know if you knew this or not, but your grandmother actually chose to knit each one of my kids their own blanket for their baptism. And so everybody, grandma was known for, she loved to knit. And, we had this whole knitting thing at our church where if you're sick or, I mean, she actually sent when my father-in-law was sick and before he was passing away, they sent a crochet blanket to my father-in-law. But she specifically made a point that she knitted all four of my
Mm-hmm.
kids' blankets when they were baptized.
That was her, you talk about love language, knitting, crocheting was her love language. So, to know a little bit about grandma, when she was about 6 years old, she had an injury to her foot. We never really know exactly what it was, maybe an infection. And it spread, and she went to Children's Hospital, and they were actually threatening to cut off her foot. In fact, her parents had come in on a Sunday to visit her, and the doctor said, "There's nothing else we can do," and had them sign the papers to amputate her foot above her leg, actually above the knee. And the next day, a new nurse started. And that nurse said, "Wait, I've seen this before. Let me work on her foot. Give it some time. Let me see what we can do." And ultimately, they were able to save her leg. Now, in that time, when she was at Children's Hospital, there was a woman there who was in the children's room. And she said to her, she said, "You may not keep your leg, and that means you're going to need to use your hands. And so your hands are really precious to you." And she taught her how to crochet. She taught her how to make paper flowers. So that was her source of her love. So she made paper flowers, paper roses. Those roses and flowers were on every altar in every church throughout the neighborhood. And in crocheting, she did that her entire life. I mean, up until probably 6 months or a year before she passed, she was still crocheting until her fingers just wouldn't work. And her eyes just couldn't see the stitch, but she did blankets and prayer shawls. She would knit booties for the homeless men in the shelters. That was her love language, to be able to do that and give that gift and give that little piece of herself.
One of the last things or memories that I have of Grandma was we were in the fellowship hall. It had been after a service, and I had asked Grandma how she was feeling, and she said to me, "I just wish my body felt as good as my mind." Is that, and I'll never forget her saying that to me. The thing is that, again, everybody, it's called The Making of a Pearl. It is a very easy read, but I will tell you, you get so much from this book. I mean, literally so much. One of the things that I absolutely love, and by the way, people don't might not know this. This will be something you learn. Grandma Green sold Avon, didn't she, Keisha? How many years had she sold Avon?
She sold Avon for 64 years. She was the first Black Avon lady in Montgomery County, and she sold Avon until she was 104. In fact, when my dad retired, he's not good at retiring. I don't know. This was like his second or third retirement, but at his retirement party, and he was about 72 72, I think, at the time. And she said, "Now, how is it that you get to retire at 72 when I didn't retire until I was 104?" You know, she just, she loved Avon. And, you know, she thought everybody should be beautiful. She was the first Black Avon lady in Montgomery County, and she would come into those Avon meetings. They met weekly, sit right in the front row, and her sales were out of the water. And, you know, at some point, some of the other sales ladies complained to their manager because she was only allowed to sell in the Black neighborhoods. And they said she must be going outside of her neighborhood because she was selling so well and she was in the president's circle every year. And she said, no, Black ladies deserve to be beautiful too, and they want to buy Avon, and they want, you know, they use these things. Now, you know, she maybe had to change the colors a little bit, but, you know, again, it's that seeing value and worth in every single person,
Yes.
and bringing that kind of love to every community. And so the, you know, they, many people still know her as Miss Avon.
That is so amazing. Yeah, like I said, I remember at church, I remember, the other ladies would have their Avon little book and she gave a Maya one as well. And Avon was it. What was it? I mean, there's just thousands and thousands and thousands of things we can take away from, understanding the fact that, you look at the school that she went to, you look at the fact that, racism was right there within Quince Orchard, but for some reason, it was almost like there was a bubble around Quince Orchard. And people, once they got off the school bus, I remember your brother Jason, him and I talking about it. Your grandmother would say, when kids got off the school bus, or your dad would say that everybody was just like everybody else in the neighborhood and stuff. But what is the one thing, and I know there's a lot, and this is a tough one, that you can take away that you want to make sure that your boys and that all of us know about Grandma Green?
Oh, Rob, that's so
I
hard.
knew it.
What did everybody know about Grandma? So, okay, I got to give you two. I got
Okay.
to give you two.
Okay.
Okay. So the first one we've already touched on is, you know, love everybody. Don't hold a grudge. Be welcoming. You know, be open to listen and hear what people say. You know, I think everybody needs to hear that. I think my teenagers need to hear that. You know, being willing to just meet people who they are, take them at who they are, and be willing to, you know, extend that love. It doesn't mean be a pushover. She wasn't a pushover, but she did accept people for who they are. And when negativity came, you just stay away from it. You don't need to associate with that. So that's life lesson number one. Everybody needs to hear that. You know, the other life lesson, and I will say this, I think, because we are just coming up, you know, just over a month since she passed, she gave us an incredible gift in that she was not afraid to talk about death. And she didn't start talking about death a year ago or when she turned 100. She did this in her 80s, right? She planned her will. She thought about her funeral. She had a will so that when it came time for her to pass, we could focus on celebrating her and not all of those details. I hear people who are scared to talk about it. I'm going to die faster if I talk about it. She didn't die any faster. Don't be afraid to have those conversations and don't wait till the end. So when we had those conversations, we could do it in a fun, lighthearted way. But we knew what she wanted. And that is one of the best gifts that she gave us in her passing.
Yeah, I love that. And I will tell you, I've been to a lot of celebrations of life and but this one, oh my gosh, it was just sitting there in that congregation, I knew that this is what Grandma Green had put together. I
Mm-hmm.
knew that no matter what, this is what she wanted. This was the music that she wanted. This was the outfit that she wanted. And her, and nobody loved pink more than Grandma Green
Oh,
loved
yeah.
pink. And I will tell you, I just have to. I said this, so I'm so, so unbelievably lucky that you and your amazing husband walked into our lives. I'm so happy that you guys told us about Fairhaven, and that we joined the church at Fairhaven. And I will tell you, everybody, if you have not watched the documentary, Finding Fellowship, please watch the documentary. Please also donate. The school's
Mhm.
just about finished. The church is just about redone. I'm so excited. I was hoping that Grandma Grandma would make it for the dedication, but we all know that she is going to be there. Everybody, the book is called The Making of a Pearl. It's by my amazing friend, Dr. Kisha Davis. It is an easy read. We'll have the link right here. By the way, there are some amazing pictures of Grandma. I absolutely love the montage that you guys did as we got to see so much and listening to her voice as we sat there to celebrate her life. Keisha, I'm going to tell you something. You come from a long line of good humans. Your mother, your father, your sister, your brother, your grandmother. I mean, come on, you have an uncle. He's what? He just turned 100?
101. Yeah.
101. And by the way, I have to tell you a really quick story for you. Your uncle called me 2 weeks ago. I answered the phone. And it's your uncle because and for those, let me tell you something. This is how amazing Grandma is and her family. They give scholarships to kids from our church who graduate. And my son Makai is graduating. And you know what? They weren't leaving Makai out. And sure enough, that phone rang. And sure enough, they needed the information for Makai's scholarship, because that's what families do.
Yep.
That's what families do. And if anything, that's what Grandma taught us, along with everyone else in Fairhaven, is that we truly are one family. Listen up, everybody. This has been the most amazing ending of season 6. I can never thank all of you enough for all the times that you've clicked on, you've bought my friends' books, you've listened, you've donated. You truly made sure that, you know what, you really can make a difference. I say this quite often. This world spins around not on an axle. The world spins around because of the doers who push it every single day. So do me a favor, as you're going through this summer, go out and be a doer. But those of us who lay by pools and beaches, get this
That's
book,
right.
lay by that beach and pool, and take in all the knowledge that I promise you, you're going to email me and say, wow, what an amazing human. You know what, Keisha? I can't say thank you enough. Again, I love you. You're like my sister. And for everybody else, I'm signing off for the season and I'm taking a break. And I hope you all have an amazing summer. Take care, everyone.